Ladies and gentlemen, today in War Thunder we're looking at the PO-2, an aircraft which was gifted over the Halloween event. All you had to do was basically finish top 3 in 3 races. And I got it using the KI-10 because everybody else was using the KI-10, and it's nice to have, it's a nice special gift. It's also an aircraft in War Thunder which is seen in a weird way by the community. It's kind of like one of these hidden gems, because obviously not that many people had it until this Halloween event, where I'm guessing quite a lot of people had it, or have it now. So the PO-2 overall, here's the conclusion. This is going to be quite an informal review compared to the other ones. It's awful. It's absolutely terrible in every single way. The only good thing about it is its BR at 1.0. But as you can see, in this game that I'm playing on Spain, everything on my team is either a BR of 2 or 2.3. So in this case, it didn't help at all. It's not an amazing aircraft. It's definitely one of those vintage aircraft which is nice to have in your hangar, but not nice to use. Even turning this thing hits you critical speed and you start losing altitude straight away. So let's look into the stats of this thing, because why the hell not? We might as well. It's obviously a rank 1 aircraft in the Russian tech tree. It is the start of the Russian bomber line if you basically unlocked it. Well, the start of the attackers, I suppose. It's the IL-2 BB-1 P3 line instead, not the heavy or medium bomber line. And it's not a premium, even though it kind of should be, since it's such a unique aircraft when it comes to the game. And overall, when we look at its bombing uses, it has 200 kilogram bombs and 250s. You might as well take this instead of the other bomb loads, because it's the best bomb load in my opinion, and since this thing really only has bombs, you might as well take as many as possible. If you're trying to use this thing as a turn fighter or a boom and zoomer or an energy fighter, good luck, because, well, the engine has about the same power as a lawnmower, a very distinct dying lawnmower. But you know what's quite funny? I still think this engine sounds better than the Tempest 2 one. The Tempest 2 one sounds like a dead lawnmower, where this one is just dying. If we look at its armament, it has nothing facing forward at all in any way, but it has a 7.62mm Shakash machine gun looking behind it in a turret form. And to me, the guy who sat behind the main pilot cockpits, he looks out of place. For me, it seems he's too high, but that's just my opinion. Unfortunately, you do not have a cockpit view in this aircraft, which is a shame, but it's not something massive. I mean, it would be nice to have. Maybe it'll be introduced later on, but it's just a little thing. I like biplane cockpits in this game. I think they look absolutely awesome, and in Simulator, they look even nicer. Except for maybe the Falco. The Falco, you can't really see anything when it comes to looking forward. So, what is this plane? It's a plane which, when we look at its historical facts, it doesn't really fit in War Thunder. It's one of these planes which it did get used. I mean, I believe the PO-2 was even used in the Korean War at some point. But it's not one of those which fits. I see it kind of the same as something like like the Kingfisher in this game, where the Kingfisher was used as basically kind of a scout plane and stuff like that, whereas in the game there is no real use for it. The PO-2 is described as a general-purpose Soviet biplane, but the thing is, it was introduced in 1929, which is why its engine does not give out a lot of power. There is actually tons of these built. There was 20,000 to 30,000 of these, produced from 1928 to 1952, and they were used for many things. If we look through the stuff on Wikipedia right now that I've just pulled up, it was used for ground attack, aerial reconnaissance, psychological warfare, and liaison aircraft. So yeah, it was basically used for everything except for the fighter role. Around this time, obviously not in 1929, but definitely in the 30s, the Russians started getting, obviously, the I-15s, the I-153, even the I-16s. So yeah, this thing was definitely not used for stuff like that. It doesn't fit in the game, because in the game you're either looking for fighters, attackers, or bombers, and in this case this thing isn't really anything. But as I said, it's more of a novelty aircraft. It's not fast, it's slower than your grandma trying to go to the shops with her Zimmer frame. She would probably overtake this thing, but I describe it as having the heart of a lion but the speed of a snail. If you've ever tried to dogfight in this thing, it is one of the hilarious things that you will ever do in War Thunder. I was with my squadron, with Rex and Cards, and basically there was 3 of us in our PO-2s. We were testing it out, seeing how it was. So they started shooting me to see what type of damage it would take, and basically one-shot the engine, and it died. So we had to land. We got up once again to fight our battles, and our whole team had been crucified by this point. So what did we do? We went to the center of the map, dropped our bombs, started dogfighting. And we killed 3 planes between us in 3 PO-2s, showing that it's not completely useless, but it's a bit ridiculous when it comes to that. The top speed of this mammoth of an aircraft is 134 kilometers an hour fully upgraded. If you're starting at a stock, you're looking at 120 kilometers an hour. An absolute speed machine when it comes to it. I wouldn't like to see this in an air race. I don't think it would do too well compared to some of the newer aircraft that are around. Its max altitude is 1,500 meters. 1,500 meters. If you spawn a bomber spawn point with this thing, that's higher than 1,500 meters. Just to take that into account. So obviously that is wrong. Turn time, 30 seconds. Bullshit, this thing turns on a dime. It's absolutely wonderful. Rate of climb, a mammoth 1 meters per second. And if you do that, well, let's just say that your engine will cut out pretty fast. You can actually weapon this thing or go to 110% if you really want to push it. But it's probably a bad idea too, because the engine does eventually overheat around 250 degrees Celsius. Another little tidbit to note out is that the turret at the back only has 200 rounds. So if you miss a few shots, you basically, even though you're not going to do any damage anyway, if you miss a few shots, then you're obviously going to reload quite a lot to hit things. With 200 rounds, you're going to have to be pretty accurate to take out even a biplane. But if we look at its belts for the turret, you have a default, an armored target, and a universal. And when I decide to actually fly this thing out, I try and use armored target. But if we look at the armored target to universal, they're pretty similar. The only real difference is that the... Or is there even a difference? There is not a difference. The bullets are just basically the other way around. So you either have more... Wait a second. Weird. So the armored target belts have API, and the universal has AI. That is literally the difference. They both do the same job. They're both armor-piercing incendiary. The other one, I suppose, is adjustment incendiary, but in my opinion, at this level, not many things have a lot of armor, so I'd probably go for universal, just for that extra oomph for when you're trying to hit them with your BB gun, and hopefully getting them off your ass. The default belt for the turret is laughable. Tracer bullet, omni-purpose bullet, 2 basically pointless things. And then you have an API and AI, so that's good. 2 out of the 5 shots in a belt will actually do something, because you have T, ball, and then API and AI. So your first 3 shots of this belt will do nothing. We take 2 out of 200, and then what do you get? Let's see, 200 divided by 5 is... my math is absolutely terrible. Oh well, doesn't matter, we'll keep going. It's actually 40, there we go. So 40, and then divide that by... Screw it. It's probably about 10 bullets, something like that. My god, my math is awful today. It's actually 40 bullets out of the 200, which actually do damage. So hopefully you hit with those 40 bullets, otherwise you're going to do absolutely nothing. So, yeah. This thing, when it comes to actual offensive armament, is something to be laughed at. And when it comes to its armor and everything like that, this thing is basically made out of cardboard and paper stuck together with duct tape. So it only takes a few 7.7s to take it down. If you don't knock out the underpowered engine, you knock out a wing or you knock out a wheel or something like that and basically render it useless. Talking about wheels and stuff, it actually has kind of a skid thing on the back. So just to add to the fact that it's very hard to take off, you can actually lift off at 70 kilometers an hour. You have this bloody thing, this stake at the back, which drags along the ground and makes you even slower. Whoever came up with that design should be shot and put into a hole. Now, the PO-2 was I suppose it was used very widely, which is good in a way. But there are just so many better aircraft than it. I suppose if this thing actually faced 1929 aircraft in the game, it wouldn't actually be that bad. But it does face mid-1930 to early war, so yeah, pretty much screwed. I mean, in this map we have Bf-109Es. Can you imagine an E1 or an E3 against this thing? That 20mm cannon, you land one shot, goodbye, good night, see you next time. But on Spain, which I want to show this replay basically so it gives me time to talk, but also to show how stupid it is for biplanes to be on Spain. Now, I understand I'm not in a biplane match, but it has put me into a match where I'm in a biplane on Spain. I'm in the slowest biplane. I am critically slow. I mean, I'm even struggling to get over these mini hills. I wouldn't even call them mountains, they're hills. And this is just kind of how it is. I mean, I understand Spain was a pre-war thing, the whole Spanish Civil War, but come on, like, think about it. This is ridiculous. It takes me a good 20 to 22 minutes to get to the target. And yes, I'm in a PO-2, but imagine if you were in a HE-51, an I-15, a Ki-10, something like that, then it's going to take you just a bit shorter than this time to get across. Now, obviously, I'm being weighed down by bombs and everything. The only thing that this thing is good at. Another thing to take into account is in realistic, you drop 2 of the bombs at the same time, obviously. So you drop the 50s, then the 100s. So if you're aiming to kill a tank or something, just bear that in mind. The only thing I suppose that the bomb load is better than is on the hydroplane, which is another review which will probably be coming out after this, which has 10 6 kilograms or 6 10 kilogram bombs. So that's 60 kgs. Yeah, not great. I suppose the PO-2 has that in its favour. But that's really about it. I mean, when we look at upgrades, if you ever decide to grind this thing or have it, then I suppose the engine upgrade is good, but who the hell cares? Because the upgrades don't make a difference when it comes to the fact that this thing is outperformed by everything in the game. I suppose a great point about the PO-2, if you ever struggle with landing, well, this thing is pretty good at it. You can actually go down to about 40 kilometers an hour, so you're basically stalling, and then you just plop it down. There's no need for suspension or anything like that. This thing is actually very easy to land. I'd probably say the easiest plane in the game to land. But if you actually make it to the target and back again, well, I'll be surprised. Because, as you can see on Spain, my team is decimating the enemy team, and I'm about halfway to my target. Very fair, especially on a map like this. I have had some interesting successes with the PO-2, and by successes I mean taking out a tank. That is a success for me, since I see this as more of a light bomber. People even said it was a dive bomber. My god, can you imagine trying to get up to altitude in this thing and then diving? Where are my air brakes? What's going on? You'd probably rip a wing at 250 kilometers an hour IAS, and then wonder why you can't dive bomb. I mean, this thing has a climb rate of 1 meter per second, and that is even reduced by the bombs that you can carry. If you carry 300 kilograms of bombs, which is what I'm doing now, that is minus 0.2. So your rate of climb is 0.8 meters per second. Yes, I'm going to dive bomb in this thing. I can't even climb above 1,000 meters. The max altitude is 1,500 meters, for God's sake. What am I going to dive on? Unless something is underground, then that's not really going to work. And even if I dive bomb, I would hit my target and then I won't be able to come up again, because the energy retention on this aircraft is probably the worst in the game. Very much like every other biplane, its energy retention is pretty awful, except for the Ki-10, which is completely broken. But that is a topic for another time. But as I said, and I will keep saying, this is a novelty aircraft. It is vintage. It is not supposed to be good. It's supposed to be one of those surprises that people in the game get. Kind of like the whole TB3 and Skyrocket thing, where you talk to somebody and you go, oh, do you have the TB3? And then they go, no, how'd you get it? And then you'd be like, oh, I did this challenge about 6 months ago. Maybe they'll offer it again. Maybe you can get it. And then we'll talk about it. But that's just kind of how it is. It's one of those aircraft which is not supposed to be taken seriously. It's supposed to be taken with a pinch of salt, because it's absolutely abysmal in every single way. I mean, look at that guy. Whoa! He just absolutely blew me away. I am amazed at the fact that he went past me. It didn't put me into a uncontrollable spin because of the air pushing my aircraft. Nope, I just kept going. It did shake my screen though, which was quite interesting. Another thing to take into account is, let's have a think. You can actually easily land in water if you have to. Which is a very weird thing to say, but if you need to ditch the aircraft, landing on anything is very easy. It floats for about a second on water, and then your crew drowns because they don't understand how legs work, and they don't know how to swim. So, you will drown, which is a shame. Another thing that you really need to watch out for, because this thing does not climb very well, once you get to the target, sometimes you're not going fast enough, and sometimes you're so low to the ground, if you drop your bombs, you will blow up yourself. I've done that many times, and it's a shame, but it happens. But as you can see, my engine is finally deciding that it's time to just get a bit hot. But if you keep it at 100%, even wepping, as long as you get that minimal amount of air across your engine, it should be fine. But the engine is completely exposed, so I don't know how it can overheat, apart from the fact that you go too slow. Another really stupid thing that this plane has. I know I'm talking about very stupid things, but to be honest, it's very hard to look at the positives of this plane. It has 45 minutes of fuel, or an hour, or 2 hours and 23. Jesus Christ, just give me 20 minutes, at least make it a little bit faster, and just be done with that. I'm not going on a scouting mission. I'm going to bomb something and try and make it back to base. And just think about it, it's taking me about 20 minutes to get to target. That means if I hit my bombs and the game's still going, I get back to my base around 40 minutes. And then, let's say I reload, go back. So that's 60 minutes, and I've dropped the equivalent of, if I'm lucky, 600 kilograms of bombs. Something that another bomber could do in maybe 15. Not on this map, but on a smaller one. It is taking me so long in the PO-2 to get home that I do not see the point. Sometimes I'm just like, right, let's go land in that field over there. I'm sure there's a house, maybe we can build one. Screw this war. Who cares about the war? How about we just go and live over there? Let's go and live in a cave with our PO-2. We'll chop it up and use it as firewood because it's absolutely more useful like that instead of trying to fly the damn thing. So yeah, that's rant over when it comes to the PO-2. Conclusion, as I said, it's terrible, but it's nice to have. And that's what matters. So, thank you for watching, and have a great day.